Is that that's the account that, oh, so I could choose the community church from that computer, and that would make everything simpler.
Is Community Church in Boston even registered? Is our Google on that computer? I don't think it is.
Oh, what do you mean, the Google? Oh, you're doing it from the Google.
Yeah.
Okay.
You say record to YouTube on the Zoom,
Yeah.
and it takes you to your Google account. It says pick what page you're going to be on.
So, do you have the password for that account, Andy? Or? Okay.
You have to ask Kristen.
Okay. I'm going to do that now, just in case we need it.
Okay. But we still haven't figured out this camera, right?
Yeah.
Luckily, we're all set to go. You know, we don't have, but we haven't. We did have that camera.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've just lost it. We don't know.
Make the focus on
What?
I like me.
You want to be spotlighted?
Yeah.
So that's, I'm now seeing your screen, right? And I have some icons I've never seen behind it.
And that's
That is now this camera. This camera.
how does it look?
Well, it looks pretty good, but it's like I don't recognize it because it's not my camera, you know. So I just have to have you sort of tell me if I'm standing in the right place. You know, this is basically where I'm going to be located. Yeah. Hello. I think it's 3:40 or something, and they have arrived.
Yeah. Did you just send my text? Yes.
I'm going to see if I can do that right now. Should have done it before. You know what I was hoping? I was thinking about doing is writing it on that. And just
Hi,
Kathy, can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Oh, wait a minute. Just a minute. How about I put my headphones on? And also turn on your sound. Won't be a second.
Trying to get all that action.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, how are you?
We're doing fine. We're getting ready to roll here.
I see.
The Shiptons have just arrived.
Oh, I see. Are you going to move the computer, are you?
Excuse me?
No, this is the position for the show.
Oh, is it? I see. Are they going to be that close?
Yes, right behind us.
Oh, I see. Terrific. And the
Chairs?
how far away are they going to be from the webcam? Because we have a real problem with John's voice.
Well, John will have a microphone.
Yeah, but we need to be close to him as well to catch his natural voice, because sometimes the speakers are a bit, well, by the time they come through to the webcam, it sounds a bit distorted, and he's any ambient noise. I suppose that won't be a problem, but we couldn't hear him this morning, unfortunately, out in the middle of the street. Oh yeah, I can see the chairs. That's quite close. That's fine.
Yeah? Oh, great. You signed it. Beautiful. Beautiful. Do you want to actually confer it to John and, or you want me to? By the power and privilege vested in me as president of Community Church of Boston, and don't forget, by the power, privilege, and incredible headaches vested in me by the Community Church of Boston, I confer to you, or whatever you'd like to say, and we'll do that at the beginning or at the very end of their presentation.
Hello. Can you just sit down on one of those chairs to see how? Because it seems to me we're just going to see we can only just see the tops of their heads. There is so much space above their heads. They're like little. You're like a little dwarf, you know.
We want to get the backdrop as best we can.
Oh, I see.
Trying to gather in too much information, but that sculpture background is what this award is all about.
Yeah, well, maybe you can ask them to stand up when they speak, because they're cut off about here, and there's like so much screen. I've got their names and all that at the bottom, so that means we can hardly see them. It's.
Can I ask you a favor?
What?
I'm busy with a bunch of stuff, but what I'd like to do is, there was that Miami YouTube that happened a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
That broadcast, it had in the YouTube chat all the action information, the Justice Department hotline, and the sample text.
Hey, can you just stop for a sec? Can you hear me all right? You sound like you're at the other end of a room. How come?
I'm not in front of the microphone, that's why.
Oh, I see. Okay, I was getting worried there. All right, that's fine. Yeah, but you'll need to be a bit closer so I can hear you.
So what I want...
Is that being amplified?
I want to get all the information, the action information, on the chat of our Zoom. so that people can see it and take action. And
Yeah.
it's all on that YouTube that's from that Miami broadcast.
Yeah.
But I can't seem to get there right now because we're working on all these problems to get the show going.
Yeah.
Do you think you could do that for me?
What do you mean to display them on this live while you're? I don't have enough time to do that. I know the
Okay,
ones you're
well, I'll
talking.
do it then.
Well, what? Sorry, I've got them all as you know, on the film now because I did an edit of our live stream. I'm not exactly sure what you want me to do with them. That's the question I'm asking.
All the action information, it has the Justice Department hotline, it has the sample letters.
Yeah, but what do you want me to do with them?
Just copy and paste it into our chat.
Oh,
But you might have the online, I've got
Yeah.
the physical address and the
Yeah.
phone numbers.
I'm gonna go look for it.
yeah. So that's the generational change one, isn't it?
Don't worry about it. Did you see that? From Miami.
what Rice does to you.
I just discovered you can't copy and paste from the YouTube chat. It won't let me do it. So, Susan, would you like to at some point early on say something about what you can do? Just tell me early on in the program. Remind me if
Now, are you having Amar
yes.
moderate and you've talked to him about it?
He's going to moderate a conversation with John and Gabriel. Yeah.
Hi, Ray. It's Kathy. You're muted. You're muted.
Hello? Just, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I just put the I just made a file out of all that information, and I just put it in the chat.
Okay.
Can you see the?
Just a second.
Look in the chat. There is a file now. Just a simple. It's got all of the information on the generational Miami change, Miami stream. I picked it up from there. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. It's in there.
Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just put the. I just made a file out of all that information. Oh, you've got an echo. You have a window open, I think. Or maybe sorry, maybe it's me. Just a minute. No, I'm not streaming yet, so.
We got to get going. Many people.
Charlie, can we possibly see the gathering of the throngs?
That's so loud. Wow, that was very loud. That hurt my ears.
Okay, that's good. So it's all in,
How are you going? Can you give me a 20-second warning? Dean, can you hear me?
yeah, yeah.
Can you give me a 20-second warning before
sure,
you start the show? Thank you.
Have we got Ray? Have we got Bill? Spotlight. See Ray. Okay. I can't find you.
Yeah, if everybody could mute their microphones except the ones who are going to be on, that would be good. We need you to. There's a lot of sort of feedback and echo.
Yeah. Jill. Jill disappeared. Jill Stein?
I always listen every Saturday, Sunday, 11 1 and 6 It's extremely about a Saturday and a Sunday on the same week. They broadcast twice this week that mention it was Zionism was founded in 1820, whereby a band of
Maybe over here.
started invading Palestine in 1880. That was when I was still enslaved by Germany.
That's, how about a little stand for water? How about,
I didn't know. I didn't know that the design established in 1820. You're right. And also, most people don't know that during the 1930s, the Zionist leader, well, after
This was over there. And it doesn't include like contact, yeah, so I just put that in there. But we don't have anything like forbidden denial. That's okay.
in that website, it must have all that stuff.
that would have me
Okay.
I think if we have
Do you need water too? Dean, do you need water?
Henry Ford.
Steve?
Okay. We're about to start. Somebody needed a 20-second warning. 19. No, I won't do that. I'll just
There's
say
a lot of
that
icons on
please-
screen.
Please, let's.
Oh dear.
Die Gedanken sind frei, my thoughts freely flower. Die Gedanken sind frei, my thoughts give me power. No scholar can map them, no hunter can trap them, no man can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei, I think as I please, and this gives me pleasure. My conscience decrees, these thoughts I must treasure. My thoughts will not cater to duke or dictator, no one can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei, and if tyrants take me and throw me in prison, my thoughts will break free like blossoms in season. Foundations will crumble, the structure will tumble, and freedom will cry. Die Gedanken sind frei, and freedom will cry. Die Gedanken sind frei. Welcome everybody to Community Church of Boston. We are overjoyed and thrilled to welcome you both virtually and physically. I wonder, Charlie, if we could pan on the audience that's with us today at our auditorium, the very first physical audience in the hopefully aftermath or unending saga of the COVID, but we are here in a beautifully air-conditioned, newly air-conditioned Lothrop Auditorium of Community Church, and we welcome you. We are just honored and thrilled and humbled to be able to host this event today in honor of Julian Assange. We give an annual award that is called the SACCO-VANZETTI Award. And we give this award because this church was founded in 1920, 101 years ago. We call ourselves a peace and justice congregation since 1920. We have a very important direct connection with the Sacco-VANZETTI case. The founders of this church were deeply involved in their defense. We have with us today David Rothhauser, longtime member of Community Church and longtime scholar of the Sacco-VANZETTI case, filmmaker and educator, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about Sacco-VANZETTI. David, are you there? Welcome. We're going to spotlight you.
Yes, hello. Thank you. I'm here and I'm happy to start. Let me introduce a little bit about Sacco-VANZETTI. Niccolo Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti were two Italian immigrants who came to America in 1908. And they lived in Massachusetts for 12 years before they were arrested and charged with the murder and robbery of two payroll guards at a shoe factory in South Braintree, Massachusetts. They went to trial in 1921, and after a 36-day trial, they were convicted of the crime, and they spent the next 7 years appealing the case from Charlestown State Prison. At the end of their appeals in 1927, August 23rd, they were executed. 50 years later, Governor Michael Dukakis made a public proclamation after studying the case at length. He came up and he said that this case should never have happened, and he cleared the names of the two men. The Community Church of Boston was the first church in America to come out in support of Sacco-VANZETTI in 1921. And as you all know, they created the Sacco-VANZETTI Award for Social Justice, which the awards began in 1976. Among the people who received the awards, I can talk a little bit about some of them who I knew. Number one in my memory was Sarah R. Ehrman. Sarah Ehrman was the widow of one of the defense attorneys, Herbert Ehrman, who wrote a fantastic legal study of the case titled The Case That Will Not Die. Sarah herself worked with her husband on the case and was she made great contributions to the defense in the case, and spent the remaining years of her life working on a daily basis for the abolition of the death penalty in America. Donald Lothrop, who was the one of the greatest pastors of the community church, actually he began his career in 1936 as pastor of the community church, and he stayed on board until 1974. Donald Lothrop, he became a leader of the congregation just as fascism was on the rise in Europe. Quickly, he shared his alarm at Hitler's treatment of Jews. He opposed vigorously fascism in Europe and later American involvement in both Nicaragua and Vietnam. Very early in 1962, he and 15 others took out an ad in the New York Times urging the Kennedy administration not to become militarily involved in Vietnam. When two FBI agents visited his office at the community church with questions about that ad, he reported, "I told the two agents that it was none of their business and to get the hell out of my office." When a Massachusetts legislative committee required him to testify on the charge that he had given comfort and aid to communists, he replied, "Gentlemen, I plead guilty to this charge. I have given aid and comfort to all kinds of people, black and white, Jew and Gentile, Catholic and Protestant, Mohammedan and Buddhist, rich and poor, capitalist and communist, Democrat and anarchist. I have never selected those who use my ministry, nor have I ever refused. Our country needs voices of dissent, diversity, and daring. It is the stuff out of which progress is made. It is insurance against complacency and error, which lead all closed societies to their graves." It should be noted, and often it is ignored, has been ignored by historians, the role that women played in the SACCO-VANZETTI case. Now, I'm speaking specifically about women from Beacon Hill in Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts. Elizabeth Glendower Evans, at the tender age of 63, joined the SACCO-VANZETTI Defense Committee and organized socially prominent women of the day to teach Sacco and Vanzetti English lessons in Charlestown State Prison. Mrs. Evans attended every session of the 36-day trial and wrote numerous articles in support of the two men. A shareholder in the Lawrence, Massachusetts textile mills, Mrs. Evans raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep the case going. Totally devoted to Sacco and Vanzetti, following their execution, she pledged her entire estate to the Sacco family. On her deathbed, her cousin tore the will to shreds, forbidding her to express her final wish. Gertrude Winslow, a founding member of the Community Church of Boston, joined with Mrs. Evans in the legal and social pursuit to exonerate the two men. She too visited them in prison and participated in teaching Sacco and Vanzetti English, without which they could not have defended themselves in the courtroom. Just to close here, I'd like to read Vanzetti's last statement, which appears on the plaque here behind Dean. And the words are, as Vanzetti wrote them, "What I wish more than all in this last hour of agony is that our cause, and our fate may be understood in their real being and serve as a tremendous lesson to the forces of freedom, so that our suffering and death will not have been in vain. Thank you.
Thank you, David Rothhauser. I learn new things about the history of this church every time I hear from David. We also have on our altar underneath the SACCO-VANZETTI plaque a photo of Bob Datilio, who was clearly the world's foremost SACCO-VANZETTI scholar, who recently has passed away, and we had his memorial service here. His ashes are there. We remember him very fondly as just an incredible trove of information and inspiration about this case, which so infuses our DNA. I want to start with Jill Stein, who is among us physically in the auditorium. And it is such a pleasure to welcome Jill for a preliminary talk about Julian and about this case. Come on up here, Jill. And
so much. Thank you. And let's see, shall I put myself right about here? You want me sitting,
That's good.
standing? This good?
No.
Yeah, sitting would be good, actually, if
That's
okay
good.
with you. Okay, wonderful. And hello to everybody out there, and hello to everybody in here. And Julian Assange is a hero, and every one of you are heroes for having the courage to stand up. And it's standing up not just for Julian Assange, but this is standing up for press freedom. It is standing up for a judicial system, which is not a mockery of justice, which is what he has been subjected to. And it is standing up to demand accountability from empire. This is standing up for our democracy. So I'm going to try to just say a quick word about all of that, because the bottom line is that this case matters. Julian Assange matters, not just for Julian Assange, not just for the work that he is doing and has done, not for the transformation of journalism that he has brought in an age of, shall we say, journalism that has lost its way, to put it charitably, has been thoroughly corrupted and corporate consolidated. His work is critical, but this case has enormous meaning for a broader society. And in many ways, it is a poster child of what's not working and the emergency that we're facing in our democracy. So I'm going to try to say a few things about that and just encourage you to stay on this. Don't take the propaganda at face value, which tells us that this is not worth fighting, that it's hopeless, that all the myths that have been perpetrated against Julian Assange, which I'm not going to repeat here, and I'm not going to dignify those very outrageous and derogatory myths that have been perpetrated in this new era of propaganda. It's now legal to commit propaganda in the US. For decades, it was not. And those protections against domestic propaganda have been repealed in the early 2010s. I don't know the date exactly, but there's a lot of propaganda out there. And it's really important not to take it at face value and to stand up for what we know is really right and really critical, because we are all on the line here. And Julian Assange is fighting for his life. He is fighting for the integrity of journalism. He's fighting for democracy, and he's fighting for everything that we depend on as well. I'm going to just make a couple more comments and just give me a nudge when the time is right. So he should be getting not only the Sacco and Vanzetti prizes, he should be getting a Pulitzer Prize for journalism. He should be getting the Nobel Peace Prize for challenging empire and holding government accountable. Instead, he is being persecuted for publishing information which is critical to the public interest. That's not just okay, it is essential in a democracy, and it is a routine when they published the Pentagon Papers. In reality, we are facing a dire threat to press freedom when a publisher is sitting in the dungeon of a high-security, COVID-infested prison unjustly for more than 2 years. And that's after being confined in violation of human rights law for 7 years prior to that. The bottom line is that Julian Assange is a political prisoner under attack because he published evidence of US war crimes, and not only US, corruption and illegality. He has not been convicted of a crime. He should be a free man. The US empire is the one that should be in criminal court. It's not just Julian's future that's at stake, it's our collective future. The future of press freedom, the judicial system, and democracy itself. And a big thank you, especially to Julian's family, for all that you are doing to carry the struggle on. And thank you for the occasion of your tour, which kind of gives us a chance to come out of the closet and see each other and be heard, because we've all kind of been fighting this in our own little private worlds, being sort of denied and silenced by the larger dialogue out there. A quick comment on the extradition. It was a very humane thing that Judge Baritzer of the UK court blocked his extradition to save his life, knowing the horrific conditions in the ADX Supermac prison where he would wind up. But it is not a humane thing that she then handed down effectively a death sentence, condemning him to the life-threatening conditions in solitary confinement in the most horrific prison in the UK. I won't go into the details on that, but suffice it to say, this process must not be allowed to continue. If President Biden has any respect for press freedom, which he's now saying he does because his Department of Justice was caught spying on journalists and trying to obtain their confidential records. If President Biden really does care about press freedom, then he needs to drop the appeal of the extradition decision, and he needs to do that now. This harassment began under Barack Obama. The extradition was initiated by Trump, and it's now owned by Joe Biden. He can stop it, and we shouldn't stop until he does. The threat to press freedom is paramount. I'll just say that the charges against him, against Julian Assange, in the words of his legal team, are an unprecedented, dangerously overbroad attempt to criminalize basic journalistic activity. Legal scholars say this would, quote, radically rewrite the First Amendment, close quote, by criminalizing such activity that has public interest value. And this prosecution would put an end to national security journalism. National security journalism is kind of our only hope for holding imperial power accountable. So this is a critical case, and it must be stopped. That is, the persecution must be stopped. And a variety of journalist organizations, including, and human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, Reporters Without Borders, a variety of journalist unions, and so on, have all sounded the alarm about this case. I also want to just recognize that this case is a journalistic farce. The legal persecution that Assange has endured has made a mockery of the judicial system, particularly in the UK, but the US has been complicit in this and has been a driver of it. And this isn't like my opinion. I'm quoting here from the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture, Nils Melzer. And if you haven't checked him out yet, Google him. He is, and shall we say, an extremely experienced attorney in international law and human rights. And he tells it like it is. He studied the case. He was not sympathetic to it. He just wrote a book about it, saying that he too was fooled by the propaganda, and he refused to look into the case, but he was sort of pushed into doing that, and he was totally shocked and transformed by what he learned. And he is now dedicated to obtaining justice for Julian Assange. And in his words, the cases against Julian have systematically violated the rule of law, have little to no basis in fact, the rape allegations and so on. They have blocked his legal defense and have effectively silenced and ensnared him for extradition to the US. Melzer identified 50 violations of legal process and due process and law. 50 violations in the Swedish allegations alone. Allegations for which charges were never filed. He's had his access to lawyers blocked. He's been illegally spied upon, which should have been cause for dismissing the case right then and there and throwing it out of court. So I just want to make that point that this is a critical case that threatens our judicial system, it threatens our legal system, it really exposes the co-optation of our media, which has really become a cheerleader for imperial power and has refused to actually look into this case or speak up for it, with a few exceptions, but not very many. So the case is also a poster child of the way corporate media has become a lapdog to power. The larger context here, which I won't go into, is in the context of empire and resurgent McCarthyism. So this is a critical case that we need to stand up and fight if we want to have a future, because it's not just journalists who are in the target here, it's not just publishers, it's really the very fabric of our society and our democracy. So we all have nothing but benefit to gain from standing up and getting the word out, because the facts are so overpoweringly in favor of justice for Julian and democracy for all of us. Thank you very much for being a part of this.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you so much. Most of you know Jill as the presidential candidate for the Green Rainbow Party, but I know Jill for a bunch of cool songs that she's written over the years, and for her work with a kids chorus some decades ago, and and also as a frequent presenter at Community Church. Julian Assange, you are in good company. There are some who have given the ultimate sacrifice, who are SACCO-VANZETTI Award winners. Rachel Corrie, 2003, was awarded posthumously. There are some who have suffered grievous harm, who have won our SACCO-VANZETTI Award. Brian Wilson lost his legs in the mid-'80s, now lives in Nicaragua, joined us 3 years ago. And there are some who are in prison, just like you. Mumia Abu Jamal, Leonard Peltier. So know that we are with you, and we hope that your thoughts will break free, just like it says in the song Die Gedanken sind frei, thoughts are free, and that not only your thoughts, but your physical presence, so you can continue the amazing work that you do. I want to introduce Ray McGovern. He joins us through Zoom, and I have to find him and spotlight Ray. Hello, Ray. I will spotlight you. There he is. Ray was one of the highlights of our 2021 season, which is just finishing up. We have 2 more Sundays before we knock off for the summer. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And we're doing the best we can to try to turn this physical gathering of yore into a physical and virtual gathering, so we can really take advantage of what we've learned, which is that this is a way to get a hold of quite a bigger platform, and also to get a hold of a bunch of people in our own congregation that are not able to be with us physically. So, Ray McGovern, thank you for being with us, and we're going to try to amplify you as best we can. Ray is a retired CIA analyst and speaker of Truth to Power on many YouTube and television programs. And I thank you again for joining us last December and for joining us here right now.
Dean, it's my pleasure. I want to welcome Gabrielle and John Shipton to our community of friends of Julian. They are most welcome and really good examples to the rest of us. I've met Gabriel virtually by Zoom, not yet John, but I hope to meet you soon. I want to start out by citing a mutual friend of a lot of us, all the people I just mentioned, for example. His name is John Pilger, and he wrote a piece just yesterday, which I'll read the first sentence of, because it relates directly to my personal experience with my friend Julian, and it speaks volumes. He says this: when I first met Julian Assange more than 10 years ago, I asked him why he had started WikiLeaks. And he replied, transparency and accountability are moral issues that must be the essence of journalism. Well, yeah, that reminded me of something that John Shipton, Julian's father, said in response to an interviewer's question. This was not too long ago, and it speaks volumes about Julian's desire and his determination to stand up. That will be the theme of my brief remarks, standing up. John was asked this. He said, now, for Julian to have stood up is a tiny indication of the enormous courage that he has within him. Where does he get that? Has this come from his childhood? Did it develop over a sense of injustice that he had as a child growing up? And John, if you don't mind me quoting you, I thought your quote was really, really telling and instructive. You said, I don't know the answer, but he's always been very, very firm on injustice. I mean, most children, of course, despise injustice, and we lose that sense of justice as we grow older. But with Julian, he hasn't lost it. He would still suffer himself before allowing another to suffer cruelty. I had an example of that when I visited Julian, maybe 7, 8 years ago at the embassy there in London. And I said to him, Julian, you know, I admire a lot of things that you've done, but nothing more than you're pulling out all your stakes and calling in all your chips to make sure that Ed Snowden got out of Hong Kong to relative freedom. Now, as most of you know, Julian is not given to great big emotion, but he jumped off that couch and he said, yes! I looked down and he said, yes! It had to be that the Chelsea Manning situation would not be replicated. It had to be that you could do this important work. You could blow the whistle and still escape the kind of justice that would be applied to you by the powers that be. Now that spoke volumes to me. Now, speaking of Ed Snowden, we decided to give him the same award that we gave Julian in 2010. It's the Sam Adams Award for Integrity and Intelligence. And we were on our way to give that award to Ed Snowden in Moscow. We were the first foreign visitors that were able to visit him there. And on the way, actually, about a week before I left, I had a chance to see Father Dan Berrigan, one of my mentors at the Fordham University Infirmary. He was getting pretty much aged. And I said to him, Father Dan, I'm going to see Ed Snowden in just a week in Moscow to give him an award. Would you have anything you'd like to say to Ed Snowden? And his voice was very raspy, and he looked at me and said, well, this is yeah. I said, what was that? He said, tell him he did the right thing. I said, well, okay. And then I said, now I was talking to Dan Ellsberg just last night. You remember Dan having spent many evenings and days in various prisons with Dan. what would you like me to say to Dan? He looked at me and he said, tell him he did the right thing too. Now, that may seem sort of trite, but that's good advice. Do the right thing. And I'm sure if I were going to Belmarsh next week, or maybe John or Gabriel are, I'm sure that Dan Berrigan, if he were here with us today, would tell us all, tell Julian, he did the right thing. Now, Dan Berrigan wrote a lot of things, and I am privileged to have a copy of an unpublished poem that he wrote, and it has to do with standing up, has to do with some of us who do have the courage, willing to take the risk of standing up. Parenthetically, I'll simply mention that Dan Berrigan was asked to give the commencement address at a very prestigious university in the United States, maybe 20 years ago. He got up to the microphone and he said, know where you stand and stand there. Then he walked away from the microphone. That was his whole commencement address. Know where you stand and stand there. Julian knows where he stands. I was staying at the Catholic Worker down in the Bowery of New York, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I saw on the wall this unpublished poem. It's not very long, and I'd like to devote the rest of my time, about 1 full minute, to reading it to you, because it speaks about some who stand up and are willing to take the risks, the consequences, and do it anyway, because it's the right thing. The poem is named Some. Some stood up once and sat down. Some walked a mile and walked away. Some stood up twice and then sat down. I've had it, they said. Some walked 2 miles. They walked away. It's too much, they cried. Some stood up and stood and stood. They were taken for fools. They were taken for being taken in. Some walked and walked and walked. They walked the earth, they walked the waters, they walked the air. Think cyberspace. Why do you stand? And they were asked, and why do you walk? Because of the children. Because of the children, they said, and because of the heart, because of the bread, because the cause is the heart's beat and the children born and the risen bread. Now, I would just express my gratitude for people like Julian, who do the right thing, like Dan Berrigan, who affirm are doing the right thing. And I will close, as I often do, with a quote from my Irish grandmother. You know, when that interviewer asked you, John Shipton, where does Julian get this incredible power to stand up? Well, you might have said, in my view, what my grandmother would have said. And she would have said, well, he didn't get it from the moon. So my thanks to you, his father, to Gabriel, his brother, for supporting him and continuing to support him as you do today here in Boston. Thank you very much.
Ray McGovern, thank you so much. We're going to proceed now to John and Gabriel. And we hope they will come up here and be in front of the camera. along with Amar Ahmad from Mass Peace Action. And a conversation, if you will, is how we've worked it up. If you could all come on up. John and Gabriel and Amar Ahmad from Mass Peace Action. Go ahead.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for hosting us here today. Thank you, John and Gabriel, for being with us, and thank you all for coming out and all the nice words everyone has shared. Yeah, so I guess I just had some questions, and we could go ahead and just get started then. So my first question that I wanted to ask both of you is, how is Julian Assange doing? Is he in good health? Is he in good spirits?
Well, Julian, he's been in Belmarsh prison for, this is his third year in the prison, and it's been, I think, almost 11 years since he's, been, detained in one form or another. So that's sort of 11 years where he hasn't been able to, go outside, go to a supermarket, play in the sun, or go for a run, or play with his kids in the park, or anything like that. So on top of that, he's been come under constant attacks, which Niels, as Jill was saying before, Niels Meltzer, the UN Special Rapporteur on torture, found to be psychological torture or no-touch torture. So Julian is suffering. He's suffering in the prison, and he's just a man, it's just a human like all of us. He's not invincible. So it all takes its toll.
Gabriel, are you Julian's older brother, younger brother?
I'm younger brother, younger half brother of Julian. 10 years younger.
10 years younger?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so were you guys close growing up?
No, we sort of connected when I was in my late teens. We sort of in around the year 2000, and then Julian, I think, since he started WikiLeaks and since he was sort of under detention and stuff like that, obviously I couldn't see him as much as I would have. But every time I was over that side of the world, I would go and see him, whether it was Ellingham Hall or in the embassy. I took my daughter to see him a couple of times in the embassy. But yeah, just try to stay. It's hard to stay connected as a family when, when your brother's sort of fighting against the most powerful state on the planet.
Yeah, sure. So obviously we understand that Julian is an activist, and he cares about current events and politics. Could you talk a little bit about Julian Assange outside of WikiLeaks, like as a person, what kind of hobbies he has, what kind of things he's into, what kind of music he listens to or movies he watches, and just him as a person a little bit?
Dad, you want to have a go?
Well, he came to my place and went through all the books, every one of them, and then he came out and said, "Oh, you've got the same books as me." They're all sort of philosophy and physics and things like that. At that time, he declared that he didn't like gossip. He just liked to develop his thoughts and intensely engage. He was a really good teacher. He taught me how to measure the relative speed between two objects in space. And his teaching style is a sort of revelatory. He discovers along with you, so you don't ever feel that he knows more than you. That's very comforting pedagogical style. Just amusingly, after a few years in the embassy, I'd go over there Christmas time. I'd go in and say, "Hello, John, do you like coffee or tea? Can you tell me all the gossip, please?" over the years, the aromas of being human became absolutely vital for him to maintain his wealth of humanness. His humanity actually expanded under suffering. Richard Stallman, who we bumped into today, had recently some difficulties as he was being hounded out of his foundation for Richard is on the spectrum and very direct, and he had written something that could be misconstrued, or was misconstrued, more probably deliberately. Richard, by the way, is one of the brightest men in the United States. Julian rang me up and said, you know, if you see Richard, please, you know, give him my regards. It's a terrible thing to see an originator of a foundation forced from the board by the staff who have taken over. So even though he's not in a good spot himself, he thinks of his friends and families with tenderness.
At what point did you realize, Julian, I mean, I know I was just listening to Ray McGovern, and he was quoting you, John, saying that, I think he was saying that Julian always had a passion for justice, I think, is that what he said? At what point did you notice Julian's interest in activism and justice?
Well, he lived with his mum, so my notice of it was being invited to participate in the anti-globalisation rallies in Melbourne some 20 years ago. You know, you're going to come, and if you're not going to come, why not? So, the intensity and organisational capacity, also the rubber hose, which is a program where it's encrypted in layers. So if you're an NGO or something and you're kidnapped and people want access to the information in your computer, you can progressively give layered access. Hopefully one of the layers will satisfy your torturers. Julian also set up an IP network in Melbourne, Australia, for all of free access for charitable organisations. Also, Julian was involved in the tracking down through the use of his internet skills, a group of paedophiles who were exchanging, well, their indulgences on the net. Julian received an award for that. So it's a sort of a continuous, it just doesn't stop, you know, that's the challenge.
For both of you, at what point did you guys realize that Julian Assange had started WikiLeaks?
I think for me it was in 2000, I think it was 2006 or maybe around that time when he was staying with John for a bit around then, and there was lots of conversations about it, and just remember hearing, you know, a little bit about it, and obviously the name and things, but I didn't really engage too much. I was sort of busy doing my own stuff and just thought it was, I guess I didn't really realise what it would become, but definitely followed it from then on.
Yeah, Julian popped in to see Gabriel and I and sat at it. We made coffee and he sat down and made some toast with avocado, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to start a wiki." And I don't know what a wiki is, you know. I said, "Oh yes, that's good. That'll be fun." And he said, "Yes, I'm going to use Tor, which was put together by the US Navy to anonymise people on the net. I'm going to use that to anonymise people who had leaks, and so that I'm going to use the facilities of the internet to hold that as a wiki anything that's revealed. Now, this is the important point that's often missed in examining what Julian did. And this is conceptual, very important. What it is a wiki which holds in a public ledger secrets or revelations of government behaviour or corporative behaviour that everybody can access, and consequently you have open source analysis. And that starts up a forum conversation. And that forum conversation deepens the understanding of whatever it is that you're, for example, government policy. So you have a forum analysis that anybody with a computer can join in and contribute analysis and understanding to government program or to propose government programs. This is really important. It started slowly, but now you can see that you can find profound forums all over the internet. That was the understanding. So you could protect the source and hold a public library wherein everybody can involve themselves in a forum and analyse the matter and improve and deepen the understanding.
Right. And so when did both of you realize the significance of WikiLeaks and that for Julian to have created it and the platform it was, that his life was actually at risk?
For me, it was when Julian was in Kenya. I'm not sure what the date was, but there was some Kenyan leaks there that sort of led to a change in the government there. It revealed government corruption, and that's when I first heard that some people that Julian was working with had been murdered, and so that's when I really started to become a bit worried that the work that Julian was doing was very dangerous. That he was working, that the people that he was exposing were very powerful, very corrupt, and would do anything to stop being exposed.
Yeah, that was the World Social Forum that Gabrielle was referring to in Nairobi, where two associates of Julian were murdered while sitting in their car by men in uniform. Nobody found out who did it. It was a continuous feeling that there was danger, always, yes. That didn't in any way discourage, or I didn't say anything about it. I don't mention that sort of thing to people, but yeah, it was quite aware. I had lunch in 2011 with the retired chief of police of Stockholm, and he said, yeah, blah blah blah. And he said, yes, John, you can trust me. So from that moment on, I knew that you can't trust anybody in this game.
So, John, you said you never discouraged Julian from what he was doing. Were there other people around him, close to him, telling him, hey, Julian, calm down, your life's at risk, this is dangerous, just take it easy, stop exposing government secrets, live a normal life? Was there anyone close to him telling him that?
The short answer, no. Well, I don't listen to that sort of thing anyway, so I wouldn't hear it. I don't like to get into I don't like to get into my relatives' way. They're doing things, and I just stand apart. Also, I don't like to correct people if they're going a bit, just a little bit wrong. You know, just keep out of their way, because experience is a great teacher, and you never know. Human beings are so inventive, so fascinating, and so deep, and the circumstances that they fall into, they flourish and flower. It's the most beautiful thing to see. And, you know, working with Gabrielle so intimately over the last 2 years, you know, spending days and nights traveling together. Everybody knows how tetchy you can get traveling, you know, because you get exhausted and worried, and, you know, and things don't go right, or they go overly right and you work yourself into the ground. It's just been such a pleasure to see the flourishing and expansion of capacity, and makes you just sit back and say, well, you know, best to shut up, best to let people get on with it, because the creative circumstances, and this is another thing, if I could beg your indulgence here, just for a second. The conversations that that governments try and repress are the creative touchstone of the society. And from that, so I'm a creature of the 60s and 70s. You know, that was our time, our youth. And then the exuberance and bursting forth of new ideas was just phenomenal. And the struggle, not the struggle, the insistence, no struggle at all, the insistence that one of the elements of this tremendous outpouring of creativity in cybernetics, computers, ways of living, cuisine, style of being, casual, the California spread itself all over the Western world, where Californians, that tremendous exuberance we insisted upon, you know. That was our insistence, and that was a creation of the, I guess you'd call it magic relationship between people, being able to converse about things, write about things. Evergreen Review, for example, write Mad Magazine, on and on it went. And so that the creative output brought us to the computer age. And now the government is failing, is insecure, and governments, when they become insecure, tighten things down, and consequently they'll lose out on the tremendous capacity that inheres in the population of the United States.
Thank you. That was really interesting. Yeah, that was great. Gabriel, when you mentioned a couple minutes ago how you said you were kind of busy doing your own thing and your own activities, can you talk about that? What were those activities? What were you busy into doing?
I'm a filmmaker, so I produce feature films, and that's what I was, been doing for quite a number of years. So yeah, I was doing that, and then we're still doing that. We're working on a couple of projects around Julian at the moment. But yeah, I think it was in 2019 I went to see Julian in the prison in Belmarsh, and I'd never really gotten involved with any of his stuff before, but it was at that time. I think it was August in 2019 when I went to see him, and he was on suicide watch, and it was just heartbreaking. Like I after we left the prison, I felt like, well, if I don't do something, or if I don't join this sort of worldwide campaign and do what I can to help, then I might never see Julian again. So that's what sort of launched me, basically why I'm here. Trying to save his life, basically.
Great. All right. So for the last question for right now, I will ask, How come Joe Biden is still giving Julian a hard time, appealing and trying to keep him locked up and extradited? Why don't they walk the walk in terms of all the stuff they say about press freedom? Why don't they let Julian Assange free?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a hard question. Do you want to have a go first? Dan?
Okay. One doesn't know what Joe Biden's doing. Part of Joe Biden's style is silence and currently unfolding a worldwide effort to remake the United States' image and soft power by advocating the values, the Western values, democracy and the free press being at the centre of them, and human rights. It more or less started in October last year when on the Human Rights Day, Joe Biden quoted Eleanor Roosevelt and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which it was in 1948, although never ratified by the United States, I might tell you. Now, he started then, and progressively they've adhered to their program, and now Mr. Blinken is with, and Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Biden are all together in Europe, presenting themselves in this manner. Also, the other institutions of state continue to present themselves in this manner, so that somehow or other they reassemble their soft power, which was destroyed under Mr. Bush. Now, so we can't really tell what Joe Biden thinks, because they're attending to what they think is the most important elements of the United States' management of its empire and of itself. That's the sum of it. We can't tell. However, Merrick Garland is a fine judicial officer who has made good decisions in support of the First Amendment. Also, there's three things that have happened which indicate that the change of atmosphere in the administration within the United States. One is the decision of the Supreme Court of the United States around the CFAA, the Computer Fraud Act, that the six of the Supremos, the six of the Supremes, cross-party, so left and right, decided that the Department of Justice interpretation of the Computer Fraud Act was too broad, and as a consequence was harvesting innocent people into the prosecutorial and jail system. That's one. Two is the New York Times. 4 of the New York Times reporters were under pressure from the Department of Justice to reveal certain things about their contacts and surrender their notes. That secret persecution has been withdrawn. Okay. And number 3, USA Today was being pursued by the Department of Justice for the IP addresses of all of those people who had called to watch a particular YouTube, which focused on the murder of 2 people in Florida. Again, that subpoena has dropped. So you can see within the United States a progressive enlightenment of the administration of justice after the William Barr, who, just to add a little bit more, William Barr. Now here's 1974, the lawyer who represented the CIA in the church committee hearings. For 4 years after that, he worked for the CIA. His house is 4 kilometres from Langley. with Bush 1, he earned himself the nickname of the Snatcher because of his willingness and ability to use the extradition treaties of countries affiliated with the United States to export, to bring into the United States under extradition circumstances those that the United States, well, let's say Washington, not the United States, Washington had taken a dislike to. Bill Barr, when he became Attorney General, appointed to the upper echelons of the Department of Justice all of the people from Kirkland Ellis being Bill Barr's law firm. That's Bill Barr's law firm. So progressively, Merrick Garland has replaced those people with one particular exception. That's the national security prosecutor. So you can see that silently, almost invisibly, without creating any fuss, they go about reshaping the United States in the areas where their concern is. They don't like hullabaloo because in their thinking that you take an act or you make a proposal, you get all of the people who want to support the proposal. But at the same time, you get all those that are against it. And simultaneously, you get those who want to leverage one side or other. So they have no interest in the outcome, but they want to leverage it. So to get around that circumstance, I'm told by our friends in the administration that Mr. Bush doesn't like hullabaloo and asked us not to start any hullabaloo.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both so much for your time and for coming to Boston and for continuing your activism for Julian Assange. Julian has changed the world, and we all sincerely hope he comes home free and healthy and in good spirits. So I'll just say real quickly, thank you to Susan McLucas and Paula for their great organization and their activism. Thank you to Dean Stevens and the Community Church of Boston. And with that, I will pass the mic back to Dean.
I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who've been most, sorry. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who've been most kind and hospitable. Every time we come to the United States, we're given, well, everything you possibly could need. So thank you.
Thank you. John and Gabrielle and Amar, thank you for this time we got to spend with you. And I want to call up Charlie Welch, who is our president and also our technical director, to confer on Julian Assange our 2021 SACCO-VANZETTI Award. Thank you. Here's for you, Charlie.
First of all, I want to apologize for all the technical difficulties. We just tried a new setup today, and we didn't quite smoothly work it all out. But being that said, move on to the most important part of the day is the recognition of the deep history of the Association of Boston with Sacco and Vanzetti, immigrants that were killed for their beliefs and not for anything they did, and that sense of persecution. The sense of persecution is handed down today, unfortunately, to Julian Assange, and we're doing all we can to get him out, and we'd like to present this award to his family to
Thank you, everybody. It's quite a privilege to be here. Oh, thank you, everybody. It's quite a privilege for Julian, Gabrielle. I mix up children's names. Do you all do that? Thank you, Gabrielle and I. It's a privilege to be here and receive this award. Amusingly, a little bit of irony here. When Julian first went into the the jail, to the maximum security, Belmarsh maximum security jail. People sent him the autobiography of Mandela and the autobiography of that famous Italian who died in jail, and now we SACCO-VANZETTI. Anyway, the ironies of he's used to it. I've already told him he got the award. Thanks.
Thank you, John Shipton, Gabrielle Shipton. I want to just close out by rolling up the credits and saying again, thank you to our physical audience for being here to enjoy this wonderful moment. I want to call up Susan McLucas to say a final word on what you, that is you, and 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 you, can do right now about this case.
Can you all see the blackboard here? Actually, the people in the whiteboard.
Let me add, Susan, that there's a bunch of information in the Zoom chat for you to take action, to make phone calls, to write letters.
Yeah, we're especially asking people to write and call Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, and the address is up here. Justice Department, 950 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20530. And if you want to call them, their comment line is 202-353-1555. Hopefully they'll be so deluged with messages that they'll just give up and drop the charges on Julian Assange.
And I'd like to thank the folks who joined in on Zoom and YouTube. Thank you, Jill Stein, for being with us, and Ray McGovern. We were going to have David Rovics join us. He wrote a song about Julian, and he performed it in front of Belmarsh Prison. David Rovics was going to be with us virtually, but did not get a chance to show up. He's got a couple of kids and a full life. But if you get a chance, go to...
Dean, I'm right here.
David is here. Oh my goodness.
No worries if you don't have time for me, but I definitely am here. Been here for a little
I
while.
always have time for you, David. I always drop everything for you. You know that. So speak a couple minutes, okay? On behalf of us, we say hello to David Rovics, our people's troubadour. Go ahead.
Should I do a song? You got a speaker in there? You can hear it over there in the room, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Barely.
Well, it's just such a pleasure to be with you guys, and it's and I have to say that just having heard now Julian's dad talking there, it's really quite remarkable, the way you say things, and also your appearance it's a bit shocking actually, and lovely to hear you. And I wrote this song that I sang in front of Belmarsh. We made a video. I don't want to go all into the history that I have with WikiLeaks and whatever, but it's I'm a big fan of your son, your brother, and I'll just do this song here. Behind these prison walls, there's a man who's won awards for the work that he has done and all that it affords, such as the knowledge of the horrors committed in our name. They can't stop the message, so the messenger gets blamed. Behind these prison walls, in solitary confinement, in a land of rolling hills and royalty and other such refinement, is someone who is a hero to whistleblowers everywhere, who helped them tell the world
of the crimes of Tony Blair. Behind these prison walls, you will find a mortal man. The reason why we know what happened in Afghanistan, when the soldiers of the empire, whose sun set long before, were torturing civilians in their terror war. Behind these prison walls is a part of WikiLeaks, an eloquent orator, but you won't hear him speak. Locked away in silence, one who knows too well how those in power act when there's another war to sell. Behind these prison walls is one who stands accused of exactly what offenses the U.S. has refused to say precisely which, or to try to clear the mist, or to explain how he's not the same as other journalists. Behind these prison walls is a person they deprive of most of the things in life that keep us all alive. A person being tortured as we stand here now for revealing the war crimes. Why, when, where, how? Behind these prison walls, our very right to be informed of what the hell is going on is the teacup in this storm. With knowledge there is power, so the solution by the crown, a 24-hour-a-day indefinite lockdown behind these prison walls.
David, thank you for joining us. That was a beautiful, beautiful way to end this event. SACCO-VANZETTI Award 2021 to Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Call Attorney General Merrick Garland today. Let them know how we feel. John and Gabriel, we wish you well on your journey. I know you have many more cities to go. Just know that we're with you and you have a wonderful trip. And with that, folks, we bid you adieu. Keep track of what's going on at Community Church. Every Sunday we're here, virtually and physically, for 2 more weeks, and then we take off for the summer, and then we'll be back in the fall. Thanks, everybody. Charlie Welch, Crystal Rollins-Jackson, myself, Dean Stevens, David Rothhauser, thank you. And thank you. If you would like to be on our mailing list, let me give you an email address to write to. comchurch, C-O-M-M, church @gmail.com. We'd love to be in touch with you. Thanks again.